The big story at this hour, the Chinese financial officer of Chinese telecoms giant Huawei has been granted bail by a Canadian court, a move that could help placate Chinese officials angered by her arrest. A judge in Vancouver set bail at $7.4 million. Meng Wanzhou will be under surveillance 24 hours a day and must wear an electronic ankle tag. The courtroom erupted in applause when the judge granted bail. Meng began crying and hugged her lawyers. Before being ordered back into the prisoner box for more directions from the judge, China had threatened severe consequences unless Canada released Meng immediately. Meng Wanzhou was arrested on 1st December and could be extradited to the US to face fraud charges linked to the alleged violation of sanctions on Iran. President Trump has said that he could intervene in the US Justice Department's case against Meng in order to avoid further worsening in relations with China. This comes against the background of an increasingly acrimonious trade dispute between Washington and Beijing. Now, Meng is accused in the US of using a Huawei subsidiary called Skycom to evade sanctions on Iran between 2009 and 2014. Now, meanwhile, it has also emerged that a Canadian former diplomat had been detained in China. Michael Kovrig's current employer, the International Crisis Group, said it was working for his prompt release. There has been no official word from China about his whereabouts. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canada was in direct contact with Chinese authorities concerning the case. And joining me live for this breaking story is William Denslow, correspondent, joins us live from Washington, D.C. William, on what conditions has Meng Wanzhou been given bail?
Well, you mentioned the price. There are several other stipulations that really go along with this bail of around 7.4 million US dollars. She's going to be under curfew from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. She'll be under 24-hour surveillance. She will also be called to surrender her passports. Of course, prosecution during the several days of proceedings during these bail hearings that, of course, went over far longer than many were perhaps expecting. They believed that she was potentially a flight risk, saying that things like her husband couldn't be a guarantor, couldn't be a de facto jailer for her because there was the possibility that his passports could expire during that period. But of course, the judge seeing things very differently indeed, deciding in the end to set bail at $7.4 million.
Right, William. Now, Meng has continuously said in court that she's innocent. So how strong is her case really?
Well, essentially, it depends what exact information that has been gone forward that the US Justice Department do have at their disposal. Of course, I think it's important to add that as far as the track record that Canada has concerned, they have certainly historically over the years very much sided with those looking to move ahead with extradition proceedings. So that perhaps a worrying trend there for the defence team and Miss Meng herself. However, there has been a clear response from her denying any wrongdoing, stating, and we've also had a statement from Huawei themselves coming out saying that they have full faith in both the US and the Canadian justice system, that this will be handled fairly and the right decision. In other words, the decision to let her go free of charges will be met. But of course, we expect her back in Canadian court in early February. Expect plenty more proceedings to go on until we have a final decision on whether indeed she will be extradited to the United States.
Right. Now, this is definitely a cause of tension between the US and China. Now, China has threatened severe consequences. What can we expect between the two countries? How do you think their relations will pan out in the future when it comes to Meng Wanzhou?
Well, essentially, the message from some key Trump administration officials, some of those that are dealing on a daily basis with this growing trade war with China, have said that there's no reason that this trade spat between the two largest world economies and the case of Ms. Meng are in any way intertwined, and they can work in parallel channels. However, Of course, we've not seen that being held true in the minds of many investors around the world. Of course, the global markets were roiled when this detention first became apparent. But we have just heard news in a Reuters interview. President Trump speaking said that if he deemed it a matter of national security, if he deemed that perhaps it was in the best interest of thawing relations between the US and China, he would potentially, in his words, consider an intervention. So very interesting developments coming from President Trump. His first real signs that he would potentially be willing to intervene if it helped thaw relations.
Right, William, thank you for joining us with all those details and inputs. We'll be coming back to you as the story develops further.